Let's do this. It is lights out, and away we go. Hello, racers. Welcome to episode 58 of the HOS F1 podcast. I am your host, Adrian Huff, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, RJ McCullough. What is up, RJ?
My friend, nice to see you. I like your sweater, MTV. It's a throwback.
Yes, sir.
Actually, before we get going, there's one thing I want to just get off my chest here because it makes me happy. So the Boston Celtics lost to the Miami Heat last night. So with that, the city of Boston is the first city to ever lose 2 home Game 7s to an 8 seed in the NHL and NBA in the same season. So the Boston Bruins lost to the Florida Panthers at home in Game 7 in the NHL playoffs. And then Celtics lost to the Heat in Game 7, also a number 8 seed at home. So it's nice.
Womp
Usually
womp.
all of Boston's things you say about their sports are, Boston won another title. So it's nice to add something not good to the list of accomplishments for them. So I had to get that off the chest. But we also had a big Sunday in terms of TV.
Yes.
We're both big fans of Succession, so we can get into that. I guess we'll say spoilers. I'll put in a little thing in the video that says spoilers to come. So if you haven't seen it, don't want spoilers, maybe skip ahead 5 minutes. I'll put a time code in. But yeah, what did you think? Final episode of the series of Succession. What did you think?
Yeah, we had Succession and then we had Barry. I personally enjoyed Succession a little bit more. Well, that's not true. I enjoyed it a lot more. Yeah, it was, a lot. It kind of hit me. We were driving home Sunday evening and I was just like, holy shit, I'm about to watch the last episode of Succession ever. Like, it has become my favorite TV show of all time, and I think it's just masterfully done. So, yeah, I think there was really, really high expectations, and I personally felt like they stuck the landing in maybe not the most satisfying way, but I think in the most cohesive way that made the most sense to me, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, now that
I know you weren't as on the full page, I guess.
Yeah, so now that I've had a day or two to digest it. Yeah, so at first, again, here come the spoilers. At first, I was a little upset because I wanted Kendall to win, I guess you can say. And he came just, so close. Oh, so close. But
he did.
The way that they handled it, now that I've had a few days to digest it, I think it was the right move. It makes sense to everything else that's happened in the show, and it was never supposed to be a happy ending. It was always, even the writers said, it's always supposed to be a tragedy. So yeah, I really liked it. There was a video that a lady put out, I think I shared with you earlier, of that there was a guy in the MLB in 1920 something that had the last name Wamsgans, which is Tom in the show's last name, and that guy in the MLB was the only guy to ever have an unassisted triple play. So I guess they surmised based on that Tom with the name Wamsgans would get an unassisted triple play by taking out the 3 siblings that were vying for the CEO position. So that was interesting. I don't know how no one ever picked up on that in 4 years. If you just Googled Wamsgans, that would have come up. But so that was an interesting video, and it's gone very viral, so I'm sure most people have seen that. But it's for me, time will tell. Right now, I'd say it's my favorite show of all time, but Sopranos was in that spot, so I guess I'll see how it plays out over time, which one ends up in the top spot. But yeah, just it's very rare for a show for their last season to be their best season. And I mean, that's arguable, but it was just incredible every episode, and the finale just tugs at your heartstrings, but it was great. I mean, the kitchen scene, the whole meal fit for a king, Roman with the cheese, and he's like, that's Peter's cheese, mummy.
Yeah,
so great.
I think that scene did a really good job of showcasing how they're still just children, they're still just Logan's little kids. And I don't know, I there was a lot of this season in the back of my mind. I was like, if it was going to be one of the kids, it obviously needed to be Kendall. He was the one of the Roys I was rooting for, even though I personally like Roman just as a character. It's all just such riddled with perfect performances. But Tom from the beginning, I just love Tom so much. He's the underdog, but he's also for sure, I mean, I guess besides maybe Logan, the smartest of them all. So he just played his hand so perfectly, and I feel like they've really, especially starting with like it started with season 3, especially with the finale of Tom sort of on his come up. You know, he felt like Shiv really at the end of season 1, especially telling him that she doesn't fucking love him on their wedding night. You know, he's just always been getting just beaten down, and he takes it out on Greg, which is just, you know, constantly hilarious. But yeah, I was very, very satisfied with how they wrapped it up. But you mentioned Sopranos. It's, you know, we have kind of discussed this. I mean, I feel like it's sort of undisputed that HBO is the GOAT when it comes to TV shows.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I actually wrote a note down that like the run, as I don't know if this has ever had this good of a back-to-back-to-back 4 shows they've had in a row that were unreal. They went like starting House of the Dragon, and then that ended. White Lotus started right after that, and then that ended, and Last of Us started right after that, and then when that ended, Succession started. So I don't know what their show is on right now, but I can't imagine that they're gonna have another banger. But that is like an unprecedented 4 series back to back. Just we've been very lucky as TV viewers, because that's been great. I think the show that they had on last night on Sunday was called The Idol, but I've heard that's not very good.
Yep.
But
no, it's The Weeknd, but it's Sam Levinson, so he's the guy that did Euphoria, and which, you know, people already are sort of really divided when it comes to that show. Season 3 coming in 2 years, when it's already been 2 years since season 2. So, I mean, who cares about that show, you know? But, yeah, I mean, you know, HBO, not every single one of their shows is going to be an absolute masterpiece, but a lot of them are. I mean, Sopranos, like you said, I know that's on everybody's list, but it's the best. It's so good. I've watched it so many times. You know, you got to, I was starting to think about shows that weren't on HBO, but yeah, that run is absolutely incredible. White Lotus, it's close. Like, so many of these shows have just like quickly topped my charts of just like all-time favorites.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky. And there's another show that I just finished watching. I think you said you watched it. Not on HBO. It's on Prime. Called Jury Duty. Oh, yes, that is an amazing show. And then I Think You Should Leave, the Tim Robinson sketch show. A new season of that came out today. So there's still lots of good stuff to watch out there.
I'm excited about that.
Still lots of good stuff.
For sure. I've got a list of shows that I have just missed or not had a chance to watch, and a couple of my friends just keep bugging me. Like Better Call Saul is at the top of that list. So many people say to watch that show. And, I mean, I've seen Breaking Bad 4 or 5 times, El Camino. Breaking Bad is obviously up there. I mean, that is, you know, that's AMC's, like, what is that? They're like, I'm trying to think of the word for it, but like that's it. Their magnum opus. You just don't top Breaking Bad.
They tried with
for AMC at least. I mean,
it didn't work.
No. Sopranos is arguably a better show. You know, I would accept somebody's opinion for if that was their opinion. I would have no problems with that. But God, yeah, I mean, just there's nothing better than getting just to experience a fucking good ass TV show.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I guess that'll lead us right into the next topic. Was the Indy 500. We don't usually talk about other motorsports, but the Indy 500, if there's any race that's almost on the level of F1, it's the Indy 500. I don't know if people maybe throw Daytona in there as well, but yeah, so they had a very controversial ending, I guess you could say. People are calling it the Abu Dhabi of IndyCar. I disagree that it's that egregious, but first I want to ask you, so when they win the Indy 500, they go on the podium, and instead of getting champagne, they get milk. And they get to, before the race, every driver has to pick what kind of milk they would have. I think Joseph Newgarden picked whole milk. What kind of milk would Adrian Huff pick?
Damn. I mean, it seems, I mean, that's definitely an American thing, right? It's got to be. Is the milk things like American, or is it just IndyCar?
I have no idea.
Either way, I feel like I'd have to go like actual dairy. I couldn't go like unsweetened almond milk. It'd be just like water. I mean, hit me with the like a 1%.
I'd say.
I can't do whole. That's too much. That's too much.
I don't even think I've ever drank whole milk, but I don't know if chocolate milk's allowed, because I think it's supposed to be white, but chocolate milk could be pretty cool.
Damn, I didn't even think about that. I love chocolate milk
for sure. For sure. But yeah, in terms of the actual
Absolutely.
race, a lot happened. I think they had the race was red flagged 3 times in the closing laps. And after the last one, it was restarted for 1 lap. So they had 1 lap basically under a safety car or yellow flag, whatever, and then just basically a 1 lap sprint. So Marcus Ericsson was winning, former F1 driver. He won last year, so he was going for back-to-back. And I guess they have like some sort of pool of money that for someone to get back-to-back that raises like $10,000 every year or something, and no one's done it in so long that it was up to like $450,000. So he was going to win an extra $500,000 basically on top of the crazy millions they would get from winning that. But it was Joseph Newgarden was right behind him, and it was just like a sprint to the end and on cold tires. And Newgarden passed him. It's interesting in IndyCar, they really weave all over the place. I guess they don't have the rule like no weaving on the straights, because Ericsson was trying to keep him out of his toe, and he was just weaving all over, like into the pit lane even. So it was very interesting. But yeah, Newgarden came away with the win, just eking out the win over Ericsson, and then he went into the crowd and he was celebrating with the fans, and it was a really cool scene. But I don't know. Some people are saying it was dangerous, it was unfair. I do feel bad for Ericsson, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. Like, do you have any takeaways from that? I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's anywhere near the level of Abu Dhabi?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's just people are going to get screwed over by red flags. It's just going to happen. I mean, and I'm honestly shocked that like these type of incidents don't happen more in like specifically like IndyCar and F1, just because it's so high stakes. I mean, if you're Newgarden, that's like your ideal scenario. You want to be the guy with the photo finish. You just get ahead of him at the last second. But if you're Ericsson, I mean, if I was Ericsson, I mean, you got to not crash and kill yourself. But that motherfucker, you get to be defending dangerously if he's coming up on you on that last turn. But it honestly, the craziest thing that I saw was that video of the tire.
Oh my god,
flying through the audience.
yeah.
I mean, that I'm shocked that wasn't discussed more, because I mean, like 10 feet and you got 3 or 4 people dead on camera instantly.
Yeah.
I don't mean that is not to fuck around with. That tire launching, those tires are, I mean, they weigh like what, 20, like 30, 40 pounds, something like that. It's
Plus the speed, and
that scared the shit out of me. Oh my god, it fucking launched, dude, and it just went right past the crowd. So
that was insane.
I saw that. I literally was like, oh, just complete shock, because I mean, you forget there's nothing blocking that. I mean, in F1 too, you don't see tires really do that, but then you do have times where Zhou Guanyu almost flipped over the barrier. So I mean, it's scary. It's very dangerous, but you know, it's why we love it.
That's sports. I mean, and apparently the tires are supposed to be like tethered, so they had come up with new ways to let this didn't happen. Like this isn't supposed to happen with the new cars, so they're obviously gonna have to go back to the drawing board on that one. But yeah, very, very scary incident. An entertaining Indy 500, lots of crashes and red flags and restarts. Yeah, I guess the main objective is they wanted to finish under a green flag. Like they wanted to finish with racing, not under a yellow flag. But it really depends on what side of it you're on. Because like if you're a Newgarden fan, you love it. If you're an Ericsson fan, you hate it. Kind of like with, like I can see there's some similarities to Abu Dhabi, just in the fact that it ended up just being like a 1 lap sprint. But there wasn't like the disparity with the different tires and all that crazy other stuff that had to go into it. But yeah, interesting. But now we can, I guess we can talk what this podcast is about. We can get into Monaco, the crown jewel of F1, if you want to say that. And you are up for the Monaco GP 1 minute race recap. Pull up my
Yes, let me
timer here.
switch over. Let me make sure I'm still recording on everything. Got my timer set. Yep, Audacity's still going. Yes. Okay, I'm going to set my mic down. Oh, geez. Here we go. Okay. I've got this. Let me see. It's got really dark in here all of a sudden. Flip this light on real fast. There we go. All right. So, do you want to count me down?
Sure. One second.
All right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are racing in Monaco. Max Verstappen holds his lead Into turn 1, Logan Sargent makes contact with a Haas and Aston Martin. Sainz talks through his radio and talks about pushing Ocon, and he runs into him. Front wing damage. Perez manages to climb a couple of places but doesn't do much. Sainz loses the place to Ocon because Ferrari were worrying more about covering Hamilton than getting a podium. Perez breaks another front wing, crashing into the back of the Haas. Jesus Christ, Checo, what are you doing? And then rain hits. Fernando pits for mediums for some reason, and then immediately pits again for inters. Sainz spins out but manages to stay in the race. George Russell goes too deep and rejoins unsafely and hits Sergio, giving him a penalty. Ferrari do a double stop. Stroll DNFs. Perez continues to damage his car. Lando overtakes Yuki and gets to P9. Piastri gets P10. Shocker, Max wins. Fernando P2, Ocon P3. No matter the circumstances, Ferrari will find a way to finish behind their competitors. Quite an entertaining race.
There you go. Nicely done, my friend.
There's
a lot that happened. I mean, we'll go into sort of we'll talk quali, we'll talk race results, and then we'll kind of get into the nitty gritty of it a little bit. But yeah, we can't not talk about that quali. That was arguably the best from literally the very first moment of quali in Q1 until the very last millisecond of possible. Like, it was just nonstop, unbelievable. I'm probably gonna miss some things here, so feel free to jump in. But obviously, right at the start, Checo, first lap of Q1, just demolishing, just binning it, just right into the wall, lots of damage. We'll talk about what this could mean for, like, with the crane and all that, people seeing the underside. We'll talk about that in a minute, but that was like kind of the craziness of Q1. Also had like Lewis in both Q1 and Q2 just barely squeaking through with the new Mercedes, so that was a little scary for me. And then most of the main other things I remember are from Q3. Was there anything else that stood out to you from Q1 or Q2?
No, my feed was completely flooded with the bottom of that Red Bull.
Yeah, that's something. So I guess Q3, it was just like, people going around doing their laps. It was, you always expect the track is like developing and getting gripped up, so people are always putting in better times. But the last minute or so, I mean, I think off the top of my head, we had Yuki Tsunoda putting it on provisional pole, and then with like 3 minutes left, but then in the last minute, 30 seconds, whatever, Ocon put it on pole, and that was just like so shocking. But we still had the big boys out there.
It's crazy.
But it looked like Ocon might actually get pole. But then Alonso comes around and puts in like an amazing Q1, Sector 1, Sector 2, still a good Sector 3, puts it on pole. And it looked like, okay, Max was in 5th, I believe. He was down 3 tenths, either 2.5 tenths going into the final sector. It's like, okay, there's no way. The final sector is the shortest sector. There's no way like he can make that up. But Max did Max things. Just an unbelievable Sector 3, and Max put it on pole. It was just one after another being like, oh. It was just unbelievable. I can't remember, at least this year, that's the most exciting, by far the most exciting, hour or whatever of the season that we've had. What were you thinking as you were watching Alonso, Ocon, Max, all that good stuff?
Man, I was rooting for my boy Fernando, but you got to give Max props to make up almost 3/10 in this final sector of Monaco is fucking crazy. And they showed like the measurements for the drivers between like how close they got to the wall, and for the last 2 turns he was literally 0.0, like he was touching the wall, but not enough to slow him down, like literally the limit that he could do. So crazy. And I'm sure that Red Bull's got some fucking gas in it, so it's not like Charles or something pulled that out, but yeah, it was still really, really entertaining. Highly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. So we had Verstappen, Alonso, Ocon top 3, which ended up holding throughout the race. That's how the race ended, but there was a lot of stuff that happened to get us there. I mean, it was like lap 1, everyone was kind of hoping Alonso was going to maybe pull ahead of Max, because that's turn 1's the best chance, but he started on hards, whereas Max started on mediums, so you kind of knew it wasn't going to happen. But Max was pulling away. It was kind of a typical Monaco, a little bit, I don't want to say boring, but it wasn't the most exciting. And then the rain came and everything went to hell. Like, it was absolutely nuts. We had guys pitting onto different like some guys going to inters, some guys staying on slicks and then having to pit a couple laps later to go back to inters, but guys crashing into walls, hitting each other. I also forgot that early in the race, George Russell went off the road, and then he tried to go back on the road and took out, well, Perez drove right into him, which wasn't Perez's fault because he couldn't see him. So George got
one of the few.
Yeah, it was a unforced, or I guess, yeah, not his fault, but yeah, so George got a 5-second penalty, which does come back into play. But the actual results, the point getters were Verstappen, Alonso, Esteban Ocon, which great podium for him, honestly, to hold off everyone. And then Lewis,
absolutely,
a little bit of luck for Mercedes this week. I'm going to admit that they kind of benefited from some bad decisions by other teams. But one thing about Mercedes, they almost always, yeah, mainly Ferrari. But knock on wood, Mercedes almost always gets the strategy right. Like, they're the opposite of Ferrari. Like, Mercedes has had probably the 4th best pace, at least 3rd best pace of any team every race, and they've finished, and they're 1 point behind Aston Martin, I think. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, Verstappen, Alonso, Ocon, Hamilton, Russell, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. Good race for McLaren, honestly. Like, Norris, they both had good pace. They were kind of, I think Piastri afterwards said that when it was getting a little wet, he was just he was following Max, like he was right behind Max because he had been lapped, but he didn't want to try and overtake him because he didn't want to take out the race leader by accident. But like, they had so much pace. Even Lando was saying they had so much pace that like they were, for the first time this year, showing that they're in the bottom of the barrel. So that was really good. Yeah, a lot of it really was dictated by the pit stops, and if teams got it right, I mean, I guess we can go on to Alonso. Do you think if he doesn't, because he pit before Max, but he went into mediums, and it didn't work out. He had to pit again. If he goes on to inters and is able to gain a few seconds before Max pits, do you think he has a chance of winning?
I think there might have been a chance, because there was a brief moment after they both were on inters that Alonso managed to gain like 4 or 5 seconds on him and close the gap, but it was still like 17 seconds. So, and of course Max still managed to re-bridge that gap or recreate that gap. So I don't know if it would have been super likely, but him pitting, I mean, I think he's more lucky that he didn't lose P2. I mean, I get that for those first couple of laps there was only a couple of turns that were wet at all, but then it just quickly came in. So I don't know. I was just getting so annoyed with all the teams, just like the constant rain updates, and they were all giving different estimates. Like Carlos, they're like 45 minutes, and then George gets told 10 to 15 minutes. It's like, what the fuck are you guys looking at? So it's just it was complete pandemonium at times, but I mean, that's what you want with Monaco. I mean, I guess that shows that how much qualifying matters, because even with these crazy circumstances, the top 3 still stayed the same, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, it was nuts. So like, the best qualifying of the year, and maybe even, and this is more of a sign of the other races not being that great, but you could argue that was the best race of the year too. I mean, it was really good. I kind of think this is actually a good spot to talk about the Monaco's kind of spot in F1, because a lot of talk before the race, maybe not a lot, but there's always a fair amount of talk if Monaco even belongs on the calendar. Even Christian Horner said, like, if we didn't already race here, we wouldn't be racing here, which, I mean, you could say that about a lot of places, I guess, but I think, personally, and I assume you would agree, that this weekend showed exactly why F1 can never leave Monaco. Even if the races aren't that good, like this, just everything around it is just so incredible. So yeah, what do you think? You think it's got to stay?
Yeah. There's multiple reasons for Monaco to stay. You know, you want obviously the tradition and the history. I mean, it's iconic. How do you not race in Monaco? If it's hard for these gigantic cars to race there, let's make them smaller, you know, fix them in the next regulations. But, there's not very many street circuits either, especially ones, I mean, if you count the amount of street circuits that aren't in the Middle East or, you know, in Azerbaijan, it's not a ton. So I think you need those cool street circuits. Hopefully Vegas becomes a nice one. But besides that, it's a no-brainer to keep Monaco. I think anybody that doesn't want it, I mean, yeah, the race is, but it's Monaco. Every race has its own reputation, and every race is not going to have the same sort of flow and outcome. So, no, there's no debate in my mind. It must stay.
Good.
It's up there with Spa.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the classic. It's when you think of F1. I mean, hell, they did a Tony Stark race at Monaco.
Yes, he did.
Oh man.
Monaco. You would notice if Monaco was gone.
Yeah.
If you had a whole season where we never went to Monaco, it would be noticeable and it'd be missed. Personally, I've never once thought to myself this season, God, I wish the French GP was this year.
Or the Russian GP.
Yeah, we're not racing in Sochi. Damn it. No.
Yeah.
No.
Let's circle back a bit to Checo and his qualifying blunder and why that's such a big deal, more than just the fact that he didn't get any points this week because he had to start P20 at Monaco, which you're not going to make back. So, yeah, walk us through this whole crane underbelly thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that was like the main upgrade that Red Bull was bringing this weekend was their upgraded floor. And, I mean, you could see it. It's like super intricate. It's like sort of curved and ribbed at multiple spots. And I'm like, all the photographers were just aiming. But, yeah, of course, Checo crashed, caused a red flag, and they had to, since it's Monaco, they can't wheel it through the crowds. They got to pick it up and move it. So everybody was able to just see a clear, nice view of Red Bull's brand new floor. So obviously that made the higher-ups at Red Bull probably not very happy. And it started Checo's weekend of just absolute disaster. I mean, it is a weekend that he's going to want to forget, but I think you could argue this is like one of his worst performances at Red Bull. Like, it was abysmal. Horrible.
Yeah, I agree. Just exposing the underside of the car, like that's pretty much the only secret part of the car, and that's like could be the key to their success. So, I mean, it's not like teams are going to show up this week with the identical floor. It's going to take a while to develop, but in terms of the rest of this regulation term until 2026, I think this does give teams a good chance because, like, I can guarantee you Aston Martin's going to show up at some point with that exact same floor. I mean, the Aston Martin's. I don't know if Mercedes will because they like to kind of do the things a little bit differently, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did too. Like, it's big, so that sucks for Checo. But it's actually just reminded me. So yes, Checo won Monaco last year, but this is 2 years in a row that Checo has had one of his worst moments at Monaco. Last year he won Monaco, and then there was video of him cheating on his wife, and that didn't go well.
Yeah.
His wife had just had a baby. So that happened, and then this year, maybe she told him, you better not win again, because I don't know, he was doing everything to throw that thing away.
I have not seen that online. That's fucking hilarious. That's so funny. Jesus Christ. You're not wrong, though. I mean, it was like he was trying to stay as far back as possible. I mean, the front wing of an F1 car costs, it's a Red Bull front wing, so it's $250,000 per front wing. And he broke 3 of them. He broke 3 of them, bro. I mean, I don't know if each individual one costs. I'm sure they've, like that's how much it would cost a consumer. I guarantee you, they've got ways of reducing that cost. I'm not saying that Checo cost the team $750,000, but I guarantee it was a significant amount of money. I mean, you go through that many front wings. I mean, they had to fucking go and take one for Max. He had to change it that many times. It's so crazy to me. I get it's really, really like difficult racing. It's the most difficult track on the calendar, but I mean, I just would have never predicted that from him. I mean, he is the king of street racing, or so he was at least. I think his reputation has been lowered just a little bit in my eyes, at least, because sad.
Yeah, especially for like, there's no need to push in Q1 at all. Like, especially on your first lap. I mean, just completely
in turn one.
Completely, what do they say? Like, no heroics into Saint Debat or whatever, the Saint Debat or whatever, however they pronounce that. And he just sent it. So very, very weird. And then it's not like that was the only mistake he made all weekend. He was just struggling all weekend when he's supposed to be the king of street circuits. I'd say he's at least the prince now, because that was rough. But
yes, not fun to watch.
No, I mean, depending on who you're rooting for.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. I mean, I may have given a little bit of a fist pump. But I mean, Lewis also had his car go up on the crane at the end of one of the sessions. So I guess teams also got to look at Mercedes' car, but they're going to get a lot more out of seeing Red Bull's car than they will at Mercedes. So this reminds me, there was another shot of Adrian Newey just staring down the Mercedes car on the pit, because he just walks around with his little notebook, just I saw someone tweet, like, one of the replies to it was because everyone's wondering, like, what is he writing down? He goes and looks at all the other cars and he's writing little notes and saying, well, maybe he's just in his spare time for fun, he just analyzes the other cars and decides how he would fix them and make them better. And maybe he's trying to find things that maybe Red Bull doesn't have that other teams have. I don't know, but that guy, you can just see the gears working. He's just a genius.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's doing it for no reason.
Yeah, he's doing it for a reason. It's just like the cameras now know to look for it, and it's just so funny how he just stands like 5 feet away and he's just hawking every little piece of it. Like, if you can really read someone's brain, like, that would be. Although I probably wouldn't understand a word that was going on in there. It's probably all like aerodynamic stuff, but yeah.
Yep, science talk, physics.
Yeah.
When they showed his face when the car got lifted up on the crane, I'm just in my mind, I was just like, he's definitely thinking to himself, God damn it, I've got to start working on the next floor now. We've got to start tweaking it immediately, because shit.
I know.
It instantly can see every detail of it. It's just wild.
He's a savant. Before we move on a little bit, what's any other main takeaways from Monaco?
I mean, I was complaining to you a lot about the regulations and how I just don't feel like it's accomplished what they've set out to do as far as better racing. I do feel like we've had better racing for maybe like the back markers, sometimes in the midfield. There have been some really, really great battles, but we are nowhere near the level of competitiveness that we were back in 2020 and 2021. Even though Mercedes, they still ended up, continuing that extremely crazy win streak. It was at least close. I mean, the level that Red Bull is already at right now is like almost unprecedented. And I don't know how the FIA can just. I don't know. I feel like it'll definitely get more apparent when we fucking end this season and Red Bull has more points than all the other top 5 teams combined. I mean, I think we're going to get to that level just because that car is just untouchable. It's crazy.
We're definitely going to get there. We're almost there already.
Yeah. I mean, they're already more than Mercedes and Aston Martin combined. So it's just unreal. Besides that, though, I mean, I feel like all of my focus was really on Red Bull. You got to give props to Aston Martin. Speaking of second drivers, I don't think Lance Stroll is going to be around much longer. I think even his dad is going to they're going to offer him, I don't know, they're going to try to find him another seat or offer him like a position on the, like behind the scenes. I don't know what they're going to do, but like they need to get him out of that car. Fernando needs a better teammate. Besides that, I do wonder. I know they talk about how everybody has like bad weekends, but I feel like Red Bull is so critical. I mean, they dropped Gasly mid-season. I don't think they're going to do that with Checo unless he just continues a horrible bad streak. But I'm curious, like what. Like, I want to get inside the mind of Christian Horner. Like, just ask him, like, what are your true thoughts about Sergio Perez right now? It can't be good.
No, can't be good. And yeah, they are pretty ruthless. Again, I don't think they're going to drop him, like you said. He has done a lot for that team.
No, not mid-season.
In fact, if we go back to last year in Spain, he helped out Max. And I'll get into that in a minute. But
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. I don't really know. I mean, I would love to see Danny in there, obviously, but I don't know if that you pointed out to me that Helmut Marko made a point this week of all weeks to say that Checo is like, I forget the exact, but like light years ahead of Danny Rick, so that's not a potential replacement. I don't think Danny Rick would have done worse than Checo this week because he really couldn't have. No one could have. So yeah.
No.
I also want to shout out Oscar. I kind of mentioned it, but Oscar Piastri had a really, like, for him to be staying that close with Lando and like very impressive. I think he's showing that he's gonna be in that kind of tier of young guys. I think once McLaren gets a car, he's gonna be kind of in that tier of the Russells, the Leclercs, the Norrises. Like he's a good driver. He's not getting dropped. He's gonna be in F1 for a long time, I think.
He's the Yuki of this group of rookies. Yeah. I mean, you had Yuki, Schumacher, Mazepin. I feel like there was another one that I'm missing, but he for sure has a future in F1. He's by far the most talented rookie out of the bunch. And real quickly, I just want to touch on, I was shocked that Helmut Marko gave De Vries props. Yeah. I honestly feel like for this weekend, that was just to spite Yuki, because Yuki, you know, he had some really funny radio messages. Obviously, I love Yuki. I think he's extremely talented. His brakes were fucked, though, in the race. And you could see how the car was behaving just on the camera, that he really had no control over that. So I think his place was going to be inevitable, sadly. But I don't know. I just feel like Helmut especially just does not like Yuki, so he's always trying to find ways to like make him just jab at him. I don't know.
Helmut Marko,
because I personally
Helmut Marko not liking someone that's not white. Oh my god, I can't believe it.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
but De Vries just did not perform at any level that deserves props, to me at least. That goes for all the rookies. But they're rookies, so I feel like I can't really judge any of them too harshly until next season. It's on.
Maybe Aston, or maybe Williams, I know he's a rookie, but maybe Williams drops Logan Sargent and Lance Stroll goes back over to Williams, and then Aston Martin can find someone, because they are really getting screwed by Lance right now if you look at the standings. And we'll get into that in a minute, but I want to talk about, bear with me here for a sec, I want to talk about my main takeaway from the race. I've been teetering on this opinion for a long time, but I'm done with George Russell. I'm done with him. Every single race this year, except for Baku, he has asked for team orders. And he, like, this one was, to me, the worst one. He kept asking for them to let him go ahead of Lewis because he had a 5-second time penalty. He didn't want Charles to come back behind him. But then he was saying, let me through so I can have a shot at Ocon. But even if you got by Ocon, you still have a 5-second penalty. So, like, there was no... It was the most selfish thing. Like, if you're going to ask for team orders, at least make there be a reason. And then after the race, this was the one that really stood out to me. So he was asked, like, if he feels like he's fighting with Hamilton, or just kind of people are surmising based on the team messages every week that George is asking for stuff, that maybe there's a bit of a beef growing with him and Lewis. And he basically said, like, no, they're at different points of their career, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, he said there's a lot of mutual respect, whatever. But then he says, Lewis obviously has nothing left to prove, not to anyone. And I also feel that I have nothing to prove either. You've won one GP, George. Like, you have a lot to prove. I don't think you're in any position to be putting that in the same sentence as Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time, 8-time world champion. I'm done with him. He just, every race, he's just like comes off like a spoiled British lad. And I actually thought I was going to get a little more mad during this. I thought I was going to get pissed off talking about this, but I think I've already got my anger out the other day, because I was just like, shut up, George. And apparently...
You're channeling your Lewis Zen.
Yes, that's right. Trying to be respectful. But apparently even when he went off the road and then came back and Checo hit him, blah, 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 he was yelling so much. I didn't think we heard much of it on the TV, but apparently he was yelling so much on his radio that Toto Wolff had to come on and be like, George, you got to calm down, buddy. Like, you got to relax. Because he says he would have had an easy P3 if that didn't happen. Now, I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't know if that's true, but...
His penalty?
I guess the incident with Checo and the penalty, I don't know. But I don't...
It was your fault, bud.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like anyone could say, well, if Sergio Perez didn't crash into that wall, he probably would have had points this week. But he did crash into that wall. So I don't know. I've just had enough of George, and unfortunately, he's going to be with Mercedes for a long time. So if he's the future of Mercedes, I don't know if my future is going to be with Mercedes. But as long as Lewis is there, I'm there. But that's kind of all I had on George. Again, I thought I was going to get more mad there, but I didn't. I channeled my Lewis. And
I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what we want to talk about next here. I guess we can kind of wrap up the Lance Stroll thing. Like, do you have the standings handy?
I can pull them up real fast.
Hold on. Results. It's driver standings. Okay. So if you can pull up the team standings, I've got the driver standings here. So Alonso has 93 points. Stroll has 27. That's just not acceptable.
That's
and he had the broken wrist at the start of the year, but he actually did pretty good. Like at the start of the year, it was like he was doing pretty good, and he's just not up to snuff. Like there's never ever been a chance of Lance Stroll finishing this year on the podium, or no one's talking about Lance Stroll winning a race this year. And yes, I know it's a credit to Fernando Alonso. He's incredible, one of the best of all time, but most teams, the drivers finish relatively close just based on having the same car. Like Lewis and George are back-to-back in the standings. Max and Sergio are back-to-back in the standings. Sainz and Leclerc back-to-back in the standings. Ocon and Gasly back-to-back in the standings. Like most guys finish relatively close to each other. Do you actually see Lawrence Stroll dropping his son?
That's tough. I do honestly, because I mean he's a businessman, and I mean you got to have results. He's not even remotely on the same. Like you can't put him on the same level as a rookie. He's been racing this is his 7th season. He's not a rookie, and I think now that he actually has decent machinery, I feel like right at the start of the season, I kind of felt like okay, he might be able to, bring home some decent points, but I mean he's also just been so bad, and I could see them potentially dropping him. I don't see him going back to Williams. I feel like he has too much pride for that, but I don't know. It really all depends on how much Lance is in or has his daddy's in his pocket. I don't know. But I mean, if you had someone imagine if you put Lando Norris in there instead of Lance, I think that could be a really, really interesting combination.
Actually, you know who was in the F1 paddock this week that used to drive for Aston Martin?
Sebastian
Vettel. He was back.
Yes.
So, I mean, hey, swap out Lance, put in Seb. That would be... Everyone would become a temporary, honorary Aston Martin fan. If you had Alonso and Vettel on the same team, just two absolute legends of the sport. I mean, I was saying during text messages this week with you, before I realized what I was saying, that if Lewis were to leave, I could see him going to Aston Martin, because they seem to be the up-and-coming team, much like when he left McLaren for Mercedes. And if anyone's going to challenge, other than Mercedes, if anyone's going to challenge Red Bull, it seems like it'll be Aston Martin. Then I realized there's no world in which Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso could ever be teammates again. So,
yeah, that's not going to happen. As I think it would be cool. Seb coming out of retirement could be very, very juicy. I could definitely see it happening. That would be so amazing. But I definitely think Lance needs to go, just because it's just not been there. But Fernando just been on top of his game. But Lewis, the idea of Lewis leaving Mercedes is interesting to me. I just don't see him leaving for a customer team, especially. But Aston Martin's not going to be a customer team come 3 years from now. So
that's right. Mention that. I forgot to put that in the notes. So explain.
Oh yeah. So Honda and Aston Martin will be partnering with the new regulations in 2026, and it's been on record that they would like a Japanese driver to be to have one of the two seats. So, and they mentioned Yuki Tsunoda by name. So potentially Yuki being in the Aston Martin would be really, really cool. I feel like he's probably the most capable Japanese driver to put in the Aston Martin. I mean, you do have that Red Bull rookie right now. I think he's in F2, but no, you got to put Yuki in there. I think that's a really, really cool combination, I think, especially with the Honda. God, I wish we could skip. I don't want to skip the time, but I wish we could just move all the cool stuff that's happening in 2026 to now, because I mean it's going to be a complete shakeup. Red Bull with Ford, Aston Martin with Honda. Hopefully by then, I mean it could be complete mix up. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I just hope that we don't, because the problem now is we waited like 6 years of the last regulations, and then finally in the final year, Red Bull caught Mercedes. And I just hope we don't have another scenario where in 2025 someone finally catches Red Bull, and then it goes to 2026, and then whether it's Ferrari or McLaren, they're just way ahead, because the sport's just. I know there's different opinions on this. Even Toto Wolff said like he doesn't want them to like put in basically false things to make the racing closer, because that's just not the sport, and that would ruin the sport. He's saying that now when Red Bull's winning. Didn't say that when Mercedes was winning. So credit to him, I guess. But yeah, it's like if you look at the standings now, Red Bull is at 249 points. They've won every race. They've been 1-2 in almost every race. If it wasn't for Checo messing up, and credit to Alonso for sure. But then yeah, Aston Martin 120 and Mercedes 119. Like Ferrari 90, and then it just drops off the map. But yeah, it's the battle for second should be good. But Red Bull's got the constructors. Max, after this week, not that he already didn't have it, but he's gonna win it again. So it's a little disappointing, but I mean it is what it is. Do you want to anything else? Because I think that's all we have for Monaco before we get to our Haas League and Spain.
I think we covered everything with Monaco that I wanted to talk about.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think we did a pretty deep dive there. So our Haas F1 League that we talk about every week whenever there's a race. Going into this week, you were up by 7 points, 276 to 269. This week you had a bad week. Your top point getter was Alonso with 18, but then Leclerc 8, Sainz 4, Piastri 1. That's all you got. 31 points.
Ouch.
I had Verstappen 25, Hamilton 13, Russell 10, Ocon 15, Norris 2, Gasly 6. So I had 71 to your 31.
That stings.
So I now lead 340 to 307. Nice 33-point lead. Yeah, we're going to Spain though, and you've got both the Spanish drivers. Oh
my God! I do.
When's the next? Do you know when the next sprint is?
Oh God! I made a note of all of them.
It's not Canada. I don't think it's this weekend. It's not this weekend because I just looked at the schedule. But whatever.
Is it? It's not Spa, is it? I feel like they were. No, that's not Spa.
Austria, maybe. Red Bull Ring.
I think that's it. I think I get that confused.
Yeah, because in the game they have it too. Yes, that's that. So I am crushing you. Punishment wheel. Do you have the wheel ready, or I can just do it and put it in post?
Yeah, we can do that because it'll take me a few minutes to type that in.
Let's do that.
I forgot to.
Oh, no worries.
I'm
We're already
bad.
running kind of long anyway. So we'll move on to this week is the Spanish Grand Prix. And I want you to, I did this last year, but I want to do it again. I want you to pronounce the circuit for me.
Oh, it's the Circuit de Catalunya.
Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Yeah, something like that.
Barcelona de Catalunya. Catalunya.
Racing. And the home of Fernando Alonso. First Grand Prix 1991, 66 laps. Circuit length 4.657. There's no lap record because it's a different track. They changed the final chicane, which anyone that's played the video game, so happy about. We did that race recently, the two of us in our career, and I didn't even make it through half the race. Yeah, not good.
It's tough. I cut that corner. I've gotten so many penalties in that corner.
I don't even think to cut the corner. The only corner I always cut is the one in Baku because I always mess up on it. Where do I want to look here? Oh, okay, the new track layout. I'm just going to read the new. So there's kind of mixed reviews on the new track layout. So basically they've gone back to the old layout. So there's used to be a chicane at the very end that's kind of this weird, you go left, right, and then it goes down the hill to the left and then quickly back to the right. And there's just, if you touch a curb, you're screwed. If you don't get the perfect exit, you're screwed. The pit lane is right there, so you can spin right into the pit lane and cause trouble. So it's interesting because Lewis Hamilton, the great Lewis Hamilton, has said, in terms of if he likes it, he says, "Oh yes, I never liked that chicane. I never liked it, and now we will come out of turn 12 and we'll probably be flat through the last 2 corners. It's going to be great for our necks, great for tire wear, and yes, it's going to be pretty fun." But on the other hand, kind of saying the exact opposite, Lando Norris said, "Yeah, it's going to be even more physical on the neck, so I'm not looking forward to it. Whether it's going to make better racing or not, I hope so. It's a tricky last corner. To be honest, it's not going to be flat out." And then said it's going to become more of a management race, even more than what it was, and it's already a huge management race. Maybe it pushes everyone to do more one-stop, two-stop kind of thing. So yeah, kind of mixed reviews, but personally I like it, and anything Lewis likes, I like. So that's my take on that. What do you think of the new track layout while I pull up the schedule?
I mean, I'm really indifferent about it. I think the drivers all have their various reasons, but I think that chicane, anything to prevent more potential yellow or red flags, definitely is a plus to me.
Yeah, I agree. And Spain is usually a very interesting race. I mean, I'll go through last year's quickly. From what I remember, I wrote down a few things because there was so much that happened. But yeah, so on lap, I mean, Max obviously started. I believe Max started on pole, but Hamilton, or maybe Charles, but anyways, Hamilton and Kevin Magnussen collided on the first lap. Lewis had damage and dropped all the way to the back. He ended up getting back up to P4, but then had to kind of lift and coast at the end, so he ended up 5th. But still a great comeback drive for Lewis. Turn 4, guys, kept, and this is the one in the game. It's hard to explain. So you go down the straight, and then it goes kind of that right and then left, all the swoops all the way around, and then there's a short right turn. And that turn 4, Sainz and Verstappen spun out without any, like, no one touched them. It was just weird. Like, the car just went out on its own into the gravel. They were both able to come back. But George and Max had laps of great battling with each other. So credit to George, I guess, on that one. Charles Leclerc had a 12-second lead, and then the Ferrari just crapped out. And his radio message is just so sad. Remembering back on last year, how Ferrari just found a way to mess up every race, like it was becoming a joke. But yeah, 12-second lead. It was so and sad. And the engine just conks, and he's like, "No!" It was so sad. But yeah, that happened. And then Checo was leading, but Max was coming up faster behind him, and they said, "Checo, Max is faster. Let Max through." And Checo's like, "That's really unfair, but okay." And then he let Max go through. And then later in the year, Max should have let Checo go through in Brazil and didn't. That's one of the reasons Checo gave, like, what the fuck? Like, I let him go through when I was leading, and I could have held him off. When Max had nothing to fight for and I needed to get a win to get second, he didn't let me through. So that was that. It ended Verstappen, Perez, George Russell. Yeah, so I just say to say it's usually a very exciting race. This is also one of Lewis Hamilton's best tracks historically. So with the new upgrades, it seems like they're going to work them in a little bit better now they've had a week to look at them. So I have a little bit of high hopes for Mercedes. I'm not expecting them to clear Aston Martin by a bunch, but I don't know. I could see a podium happening this week. But in terms of the actual schedule here in Eastern Standard Time, we got practice 1, 7:30 a.m., practice 2, 11, practice 3, 6:30 a.m., qualifying 10 a.m., so not bad, race 9 a.m. So kind of your typical, it's kind of going to be like that for the European schedule is usually like that. So yeah, not bad at all.
Same as Monaco.
Yeah, so I'm good with that. Red Bull. I don't know what to make of this. Red Bull has said that they have something new this week. They're bringing some upgrades. And I have no idea what part of the car they're upgrading, if they're just saying that to throw other teams off. But I think it would be the biggest troll job of all time if they show up with no side pods. Even if they just do that and then like scrap it. But if the 1 week after Mercedes,
just for one weekend,
or even if they just show up with that for like session 1 and then just go back to the other one for session 2, practice session 2. But like after Mercedes, all like a year and a bit of the crazy no side pods that did not work at all. And if they get rid of that finally and then Red Bull trolls them with no side pods, that would be hilarious.
That would be the ultimate fuck you to Toto.
Yeah, and you know
for
Christian wants he gets no more enjoyment than giving a fuck you to Toto.
Mm-hmm.
He actually had an interesting quote.
Oh yeah,
when he was talking about every team being able to see like the underside of their car, he said something like, "Yeah, all the other teams got to look up our skirts." I was like, "See there, Christian."
Yeah, Christian.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's that. Weather forecast. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna say my prediction, but go ahead with the weather.
Yeah,
first.
just real quick. Barcelona is set for warm and sunny conditions throughout the race weekend, but with a fair chance of rain on Saturday and Sunday. Those two sentences kind of go polar opposite to each other, but highs of 25 Celsius predicted on Sunday for the start of the race, with sunny conditions but a chance of showers. If we can just start getting races that start sunny and halfway through get a little bit of rain, if we can just get a nice little bit of that going, this season could turn around real quick.
It'll be insanity.
Yeah. So yeah, look forward to that. We'll be looking at that obviously because that seems to be the great equalizer when it rains. Teams really have to change things up. So that's the weather. Give me your podium.
Gonna go all my Spanish members of my team: Checo, Fernando, Carlos.
What about Max? DNF?
Well, yeah, I think he's gonna absorb some of Sergio's bad luck. Hopefully,
I wouldn't mind seeing Max have just a sliver of bad luck. He hasn't really had any.
I would love if he could just qualify like really, really low just a couple of times this year, just to mix it up a little bit.
That would be fantastic.
Needs to happen.
I'm going to go with Max win. Kind of seems inevitable. And then I'm going to say Alonso's 2. I'm thinking Perez might start going on a bit of a slide here. I don't know. He could win, but this isn't a street track. I think I'm going to say Lewis, 3rd place. So Max, Alonso, Lewis. Hopefully somewhere in those three we'll see a good battle, whether it's Max versus Alonso or Alonso versus Lewis or Max versus Lewis. That'd be nice to see just some actual battles at the top. I mean, I could see Red Bull and Max winning by 30 seconds again, but it'd be really nice to see. We got a bit of it this week. It'd be just so nice to see a close race to the finish. So that's my podium, and then after this we have my home Grand Prix, Canadian Grand Prix. I will not be attending this year, but it'd be actually kind of nice now that I've been there to watch on TV and kind of take it all in with the perspective of someone that's been there. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
From the comfort of your own home.
Exactly, and I can actually listen to everything, and you do absorb way more, like obviously, but you absorb way more being at home watching on TV than you do when you're actually at the track. So,
sure.
Yeah, I think that's about it for this week. Any final thoughts?
Let's see. Just continuing to ask people to support the show by sharing your whatever you can do. Rate us on Spotify, follow us. I'm not even trying to do the outro right now. Just legitimately do whatever if you enjoy listening. If you're one of our weekly listeners, whether if it's on Spotify or YouTube, we're very appreciative of you. Just want to continue to vocalize that because anybody taking time out of their day to listen to our takes or our recaps of the race, that's awesome, and I think that's really, really cool. The fact that there's people out there that enjoy listening to us. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah,
you want to take us out?
I agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Enjoy the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, the Catalunya. Maybe Alonso gets his whatever win it is that he's been pining for so long. This would be a great spot to get it. So yeah, that's kind of, even though I haven't historically loved Alonso, I'm gonna if Lewis can't win, I'm hoping it's Alonso this week. That would be great. Storybook ending. So that's about it. Thank you everyone for watching, listening. As he said, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will be back next week to wrap up Spain.